Hi, in this tutorial we will study an additional design database example using the ER model. This is the one that I'm calling the hospital database example. And actually this example is listed in one of the PowerPoints and, as an example of specifications. So let's let's work with the specification and let's see what would be a good database design using the ER model. Okay, so again, we read and we pause. So just highlighting what I'm reading and then what we need to pause there. So the hospital database contains information about patient, doctor, nurses, doctor's prescription to patients. So this kind of give us an idea of what will be entities and we don't really know about relationships and attributes. Again, we're looking for entities, relationships, and then we need to find the cardinalities, the connectivities, attributes, and what is it that is more appropriate. So far we don't have yet enough information, but then here in the first bullet it talks about patients and then it says social security, name, age. So now for sure we know that this is an entity and these are attributes that we're listing there, right? And this attribute looks like, okay, they may be uh, single attributes. Now if we're going to look, I see another attribute here, which is doctor, and then another attribute here, I'm sorry, another entity set doctor, and then you see it's very similar to patient, social security, name, age, sex. So far it's the same. And then there are things that are different. Now here, nurse, also very similar to the other two, right? And then here, prescription, this is not the same so far. But the first three, okay, patient, doctors, and nurses. Now here, we need to make a decision because we're going to have here options. Each one of them by itself is an entity set. And then we got the attributes. However, we notice that they have something in common, and this is what we were studying about extended ER. So either approach will be fine. We can define a big entity set for patient, another for doctor, and another for nurse, and list those attributes there. Or we can use some type of specialization, which is the one that I'm doing here. So for example, we go over here and say, well, this has something in common. This is people, and they have social security, name, age. And then we can call that person. This is the one that we have here. So what I did is the process of generalization because they were given those three, and then I got the other here. So this is patient, and I'm listing the attributes that they were different. Doctor, patient, doctor, nurse. So let's go and see. We got all the attributes. I think we got all the attributes there and the information that we need. Okay, so let's go back here and see the next part. And now I will tell you about a very common mistake. Very common mistake will say that prescription is also an entity set because prescription is described by these attributes. How is that I make the distinction that says no, prescription is not an entity set because prescription to be defined is using attributes from other entity sets. For example, doctor's social security number is already an entity, but it's an attribute of another entity, doctor's name, patient social security number, and then there are things that are not in the other entity set, like medicine name and dosage. Then again, it is a relationship because it's saying something about two entities. So if we go over here and see the way that I have it. So this is where we have the prescription. You see it's connecting patient and it's connecting doctor. Now there is something else that we have there, which is the name, the dosage, and the date. And you see, these are attributes of the relationship. Why? Well, if I put that medicine name, dosage, and date on the patient, that doesn't make sense. This is. I mean, you cannot make a definition of the patient by the medicine name, right? And then again, which medicine? I mean, if we put that, then that means the patient is always taking that medicine. I mean, is that forever is part of the attributes? And what about if they're taking multiple medicines? And then the same here with the doctor, I cannot put the medicine, the date, and the dosage there. These attributes happen when the relationship between patient and doctor with prescription occurs. When a patient participates on the relationship with a doctor, then and that participation gets those attributes. Okay, so let's go now with the next. So again, let's see, we go into the next one. So we got prescription. Now each doctor can be the primary physician of at most 20 patients. Again, this is a relationship. Why? Because we're talking about a doctor. This has been already identified as an entity set. And then patient has been already identified as an entity set. So the relationship here is something about being the primary physician. So if we go and look here, I think I'm gonna need two of these. Make one for the okay, so doctor and patient here. I want this to highlight primary of. So this is the relation. So that's the one that meets this requirement. So here. And now it says at most 20. So look at that, I'm adding that the participation too. So here is 0 and 20. And look at also that in prescription, I did not indicate if that was a one-to-one because I didn't have that information there. But I will assume that this is many-to-many. Why many-to-many? Because if I say, for example, one and many, then that means those doctors can only treat that patient, that only patient. And then if I say here, many patients, one doctor, that means they can only have that. Then, I mean, for example, you go to the emergency room or something, and somebody wants to write a prescription, the database won't let you. So the many-to-many will let doctors to treat many patients, and patients have several doctors write a prescription as needed. But I mean, I didn't have that information, but I think that's what it makes the most sense. However, in primary, you see the 0-20, that means maybe you don't need to have a primary, but the doctor can have up to 20 patients, may have nothing, which is the 0, and then the same with the patients have to have at most uh, the patient has to have the patient may have 0 or 1 primary doctor, but no more than 1. Okay, so let's see. So the nurse could take care at most 5 patients. So again, a nurse and patients are already entities. They were identified as entities. So then we just have to define a relationship between nurses and patients with 5. And let's see here. So again, nurses take care of several patients, and patients can have up to 5 nurses. And the other information that we have here is just illustrating constraints that this we cannot define those in the ER, but this is something that can be that we can take into account if we were doing the physical design. The physical design is the way that we arrange the actual data on the hard drive, and then it says okay, and that will need to be studied separately. But this information is not included in the ER.